Before we come to our close of our interview, how about we have a very, very short Q&A from the audience with us here to ask some questions to our one and only Dr. Vera Mwaanga before we come to a close.
Zambia is a very small, landlocked country that nevertheless became a mediator in conflict far beyond its borders. Cyprus, the Seychelles, Sudan, and Namibia. What allows a country with a modest military and economic power to earn a seat as a trusted mediator? And can Zambia still play that role today? And with your well-articulated life events, what summarized piece of advice can you give young diplomats about turning a single meeting into a long-lasting leverage?
Thank you very much. I think that Zambia, we are fortunate in Zambia to be located strategically where we are, with so many borderline countries. There are not many countries that have as many neighbors as we have. It's a blessing, it's certainly not a curse. And diplomacy and the need to maintain good neighborliness has been a priority for us. Conflict resolution, conflict management has been part of our priority. In the Organization of African Unity, OAU, before the African Union was formed, I'm sure you all know that before the African Union was formed, we had the Organization of African Unity, OAU, which was formed on the 25th of May, 1963 in Addis Ababa. And after that, it was overtaken by the African Union. We have been pressing, and for me as Foreign Minister of Zambia, I was pressing for a department to be established within the UN Secretariat of Department of Conflict Prevention, Management and Resolution. Fortunately, it has now been established, and they do have some capacity to manage conflicts. My only disappointment is that it is based on managing rather than preventing conflict. But all the same, they have developed capacity now to manage conflicts among different African countries, because we've had many conflicts on the African continent which required management, involving deaths of so many people. And we have had conflicts in Sudan, for example, which led to the creation of South Sudan. I was a mediator in South Sudan, in Sudan, working with what was called the SPLA, the South Sudan People's Liberation Agency, and which was led by a man called Dr. John Garang. The whole of SADC supported that movement because they are based in the southern part of Sudan, while the northern part is Muslim. The southern part is predominantly Christian. Now, they started introducing Sharia laws from the north into the south. Then the conflict started. So I was appointed by the OAU then as a mediator, and I was able to perform my duties as in mediation, where we agreed with the Sudanese government and SPLA that there should be a referendum in South Sudan to enable the people of South Sudan decide whether they wanted to be independent or continue to be part of of Sudan. The UN organized the referendum, and the people of South Sudan voted 97% in favor of independence. That is how South Sudan was then born. And I went to attend the independence of South Sudan. But we also have had challenges since South Sudan was introduced, because the original leader, John Garang, who should have been the first president, was involved in a helicopter accident in Uganda before the country became independent. So his deputy, Salva Kiir, is the one who became president. And unfortunately, his vice president did not have the same political ability to handle issues as his vice president. And as a result of that, the conflict in South Sudan is continued. Salva Kiir, the president, and his vice president, they operate from different areas. And 3 million South Sudanese have been declared internally displaced, and over 2 million have fled the country since they got independent, which is not a good thing at all. So we've had a lot of issues with South Sudan, but at least Africa has developed a capacity to manage and prevent, manage, and resolve conflicts, because some of these conflicts have been very devastating. If you take the conflict which was in Rwanda, which was based on ethnicity between the Hutus and the Tutsis, two tribes. Almost 1 million people lost their lives within a period of 4 months fighting ethnicity. That's why here in Zambia, we must continue to faithfully adhere to one Zambia,
one nation.
One nation, because ethnicity is ugly and it brings about untold misery to citizens. And in wars, in areas where there has been war, the people who suffer the most are women and children. And we must do everything to make sure that the spirit of one Zambia and one nation is maintained by successive leaders as we go along. You will be there and I may not be there, but to make sure that one Zambia, one nation is maintained. Just to give you a very brief example, when we were deciding on choosing an official language for Zambia, we said, no problem, English will be the official language. Let's now decide on the national languages. Out of 72 or 73 ethnic groups, we had to decide on national language. Well, first of all, we came to the conclusion that there was no problem deciding on Bemba, Lozi, Nyanja, Tonga, which covered all other areas except Northwestern Province. In Northwestern Province, which is the smallest of the provinces at that time, you have Kaondes, you have Lundas, and you have Luvales. They don't get on. So I was appointed to go and do an assessment together with officials. And we met leaders from both, all these 3 ethnic groups. And it became obvious to me and to my officials that if we chose one of those ethnic groups to become a national language, there would be endless war there. I said, in the interest of peace, let us adopt all three of them as national languages. That is why we have 7 national languages today. That is the reason why we have 7 national languages.
Dr. Mwaanga, you spoke about the issue of sharing positions in government. In today's world, we see a lot of focus on powers of the 3 arms of government: legislative, judiciary, and executive. Do you see a future where these can truly be separated, and how can we get there?
Well, I think that in any democracy, even nascent democracy like ours, there is need to have a separation of powers. It would not be right to expect the judiciary or to expect the executive, which is, of course, the executive is the one that is on top of this ladder of three power system. The executive, then you have the legislature, the judiciary. You can't have the executive, which controls the police, the army, everything else. They charge you and they convict you as well themselves. You need an independent agency to be able to do that. So, to a great extent, this system has worked well in many countries, and it is also true that it has been tested very severely, even in countries like the United States. Just in the last few days, the Supreme Court was taking away powers from the president. Some of them were being added to him, some of them were being taken away. That's the Supreme Court, and once they decide, there is nothing the executive can do. They will have to obey, because if they go back to the executive, the judiciary, they'll say that that decision has already been made. So even here, we have these three arms of government, and I think they've operated fairly independently of each other from time to time, to a great extent, and in the sense that the judiciary operates on its own, the Chief Justice is the head, the legislature is under the Speaker of the National Assembly, the executive is under the leadership of the President. Then there are times when the executive and the legislature have to work together in order to make laws. Members of Parliament, ministers have to sit in the legislature where laws are made. That is why, I don't know if you have noticed, that there is a very subtle distinction between the National Assembly and Parliament. The National Assembly, when you are dealing only with members of who are not part of the government. When you are dealing with members of the government and the National Assembly, then it becomes Parliament. To Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament. That's why the Speaker is called the Speaker of Parliament. So it's a subtle distinction, and I think it has worked in its own way, in very subtle ways. And it is a system that I think has won the acclamation of many, many countries around the world. But I also know, I've been to 146 countries in the world. I know of a few of those countries where they don't respect this separation of powers. Once the executive has decided the person goes to jail, that put this person in jail, the judiciary has got no alternative but to do that. And fortunately, it doesn't happen here, at least not yet. During my time, it hasn't happened. I don't know what will happen in your time as we go through generational change. I hope that you also not let it happen in your time.
During your political era, you most likely made many sacrifices for us to be where we are today as Zambians. When you look back at those sacrifices, do you think that your personal safety or that your career was at risk?
And among all the leaders you have worked under and alongside, who has been your biggest inspiration and why?
I'll start with the last part of the question. My biggest inspiration has been Dr. Kenneth David Kaunda. He has been my biggest inspiration because he obviously noticed something in me. As a young person, he felt that I had a lot of potential. His colleagues did not always agree with him, but he had faith in me. He gave me responsibilities, and I made sure that I performed those responsibilities in a very serious and diligent manner, because I did not want future youth, young people in future, not to be considered for positions of responsibility. If I had failed, a lot of young people would have failed as well to get into leadership. When I was in cabinet for some years. And I first entered cabinet, by the way, in 1973. How many years ago is that?
53 years ago.
53 years ago. I entered cabinet and parliament 53 years ago. And some appointments would come to cabinet. I remember one particular one which came to cabinet, appointment of an attorney general, a young man then who was called George Chilupe. He was being appointed as attorney general. It required ratification by parliament, but before parliament, it required approval by cabinet to endorse before it goes to parliament. So when it came to parliament, I listened to people talking. He was 33 years old at that time, George Chilupe. And they were saying, Mr. President, this is a very young man. Why would you give him such responsibility? You know, this one speaks, this one speaks. So I said, oh my God, they are focusing on the wrong issues. Then I put up my hand and I said, are we talking about age or are we talking about ability? You must draw a distinction between age and ability. Is he capable of doing the job for which he has been appointed? When you look at the CV which you have been given, my answer is yes, he is capable of doing the job. Why are you concentrating on his age? What about me? You are all older than me here. I've been given some of the most important responsibilities. Have I been a failure? They said, no, you haven't. So why would this young man at 33 years, who is capable, the qualifications he has got, the experience, why would he not perform these duties? After that, the age argument went silent, and the young man was ratified by cabinet and sent to parliament, where he was also ratified and he became attorney general. So there are issues of age, and when I was also a minister, I used to have two personal assistants, one young lady and one young man, who worked with me for 6 months each. And they worked in my office. They attended every meeting I had. They accompanied me on every trip I made, wherever I went to, whether I was meeting a president or a king or a foreign minister, they were there. They attended every meeting. And it was part of mentorship, to mentor young people. Every 6 months, I changed. Another 2 came, and the same thing happened. Another 2 came. Every 6 months, I changed staff, personal staff, so that young people could get some experience. A lot of these young people became very, very successful, and one of them is an assistant administrator of United Nations Development Program in New York, UNDP. And a number of them, some with African Development Bank. So some of them became permanent secretaries, director general of this, secretary general of this organization. And I'm saying, yes, that's what I was hoping they would do. So I think that mentorship is important, but after I left, my successor was not keen on continuing. He discontinued that program, which I think, in my view, was wrong. And they should have continued with that mentorship program, because young people need to be given an opportunity to know what's going on. During the commission, which was looking at the Constitution, I made representations. I think some of you may have read what I said. I was advocating for young people to be brought into the National Assembly, sit in Parliament, to be given responsibilities, women to be given more seats in Parliament, because if you take statistics from the last elections, 2021, there were 7,020,000 voters, registered voters. Out of that, 53.4% were women, 46.6% men, to elect 156 members of parliament. Wow. After the results, women have 25 seats. They had 25 seats in the last parliament, which was 15% of the total number elected. And I gave those statistics to the commission. I said, what is wrong? What? Is that fair? No? 53%, nearly 54%, you give the women 15% representation in parliament. I said, that's not right. During the struggle for independence, the women fought alongside us. They suffered the same humiliation we suffered. Why should we discriminate against them now that we are independent? You know? Anyway, it looks like they listened, and a lot of these issues have now been included in the new constitution. And for me, although they don't represent everything I wanted to see, they represent an important step in the right direction. My campaigns for youth and women has not ended. It will continue until there is much better and more equitable representation of both the women and the young people in parliament and in institutions of governance throughout the country.
Very well said, Dr. Mwaanga. I believe that our knowledge has truly been filled to its brim with nothing but proper intellect. Now, to come to a close of a truly remarkable interview, I'd like to call upon a head student from St. Ignatius College, which was first established by yourself, of course, to give us some closing remarks in the form of a vote of thanks to put a halt to an amazing day.
Dr. Mwaanga, thank you for your generous time, wisdom, and guidance. We thank you especially, not just for answering our questions, but rewiring our mindsets as future leaders. Through your intriguing and inspiring stories, sir, you have enabled us to understand that leadership doesn't, in fact, begin with age, office, comfort, or perfect conditions. It instead begins with purpose, preparation, courage, and the will to serve wholeheartedly. As young people, we are challenged by your stories to ask what we are preparing ourselves to carry for our school, our country, Africa, and the world. We ask ourselves what it is that we want to achieve in our lives as future leaders and members of this country. As we commemorate Heroes Day and Unity Day, we are reminded that heroes are not honored only by monuments, speeches, and ceremonies. They are honored with a new generation that accepts their responsibility. We believe your call to a sense of duty is one that we can all relate to. You have truly shown us that not all heroes wear capes, as you have taught us what it actually means to be one. We hope to follow in your footsteps and live and work in service for our country. On behalf of St. Ignatius College, Rhodes School, the Italian School, and everyone present here today, thank you for your wisdom, your service, and your continued guidance.
Give you a round of applause. As Dr. Mwaanga once stated in an interview 5 years ago, he said that if he was to describe himself in a few words, it would be passionate about service. And I hope that this interview can give you passion in whatever you choose to do. Thank you for viewing.